Hey folks, it's Rod with Pow Group. Welcome back on the Pursuit of Wealth. Today is Monday, July 15th, 2024. And with me again is John Kueber, CEO of Nevis Brands, which trades on the CSE under ticker symbol NEVI and on the OTC under PSCBF. Welcome back to the show, John. It's great to have you back on again.
Rod, awesome to be here. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. You bet. My pleasure. Yeah, it's crazy, but about 5 months now since we last spoke. And full disclosure, I did start a position in the stock. I didn't have one previously, but I did start a small position. The MJ space started to kind of pull back a little bit, so I took advantage of the dip. And yeah, congrats on a great Q2.
Thanks so much for being a shareholder. First of all, glad you're on board. And yeah, we're really happy with Q2. I mean, of course, you always are hoping for a little bit better, and you're always trying to squeeze in a little bit more revenue or hope that a certain territory does better. But overall, we're just pleased to be growing, pleased to turn the corner on EBITDA, and excited about the quarters to come.
For sure. Yeah, it definitely seems like you're on the right path, and some fantastic highlights. We'll just kind of go through a few things here. For those that haven't seen the initial video, our initial interview, you can check that out for a little bit more background on John. But one thing that, and a little bit more on the company as well, but one thing that I wanted to highlight was just some of those fantastic numbers, especially the revenues. $436,532, up 15% from the prior quarter. The company had its first EBITDA positive print in history, and that was a 215% improvement over the prior quarter. And the gross margin, a whopping 67%, was incredible. What was the biggest driver behind these results, and what, in your opinion, what separates Nevis Brands from the rest of the microcaps in the industry?
Yeah, look, great question. There's a lot in there. Maybe I'll first start with the growth drivers, and then I'll get to what I think separates us. So,
sure.
Growth-wise, we started to see some of our newer states start to kick in their revenues, and while we don't break down individual numbers by state, it's worth noting that we saw great growth in Missouri, which we only launched. That's not even a full quarter where we reported those numbers. So we're excited to be reporting a full quarter of Missouri numbers next quarter. That was great. We saw some nice production and royalties driven in Ohio. California continues to move along. I want to see California expand a little bit faster, but we are making progress there nonetheless. Saw a few more additional revenues from some of the products that we launched in Washington. And then finally, Nevada, which is still a relatively new market for us, starting to see a few bumps there. And then finally, Oregon. Oregon, which has been sort of a problem child for us over the last year. We had to switch licensees in January and had zero revenue for a while. Starting to pull in some decent numbers out of Oregon, and that's on a great trajectory. So, one thing I always have to emphasize, this is royalty revenue. So when you see, $400,000 reported, this represents roughly our 20% royalty. You're really seeing, $2 or $3 million worth of major being sold at a wholesale level, which puts us, right in line with some of our comparables. If you look at, say, a Mary Jones by Jones Soda or someone like that.
Right.
We actually do sell substantially more product than some of those comparable companies that trade at much higher valuations. So our brand is alive and well in the marketplace. We don't book the top line revenues of wholesale revenues, but we also have and this is going to answer really your second question, which is how are we different? This is what dovetails into our very unique business model, where we are able to pull in revenues and really only incur small COGS around packaging, which we do as a control mechanism for our partners. But when you're a licensee of Nevis, your job is to make our product, get it in the market, sell it, and build the marketplace. And in return, you get a formula that is proven, a brand that is proven, marketing support, similar to a lot of other franchisee relationships elsewhere in business. So we have a really unique model. And if you map that back to our financials, again, these are modest numbers right now, early days for us, but we grew our revenues by about $50,000-$60,000, and our turn in EBITDA was about $50,000 or $60,000. So what you're seeing right now is it's not going to be dollar for dollar forever, because we do need to and want to spend some more money on marketing and things like that. But people should be able to see that with additional revenue, it almost drops directly into more EBITDA. And again, I can't make that assurance that it's going to continue forever, but it shows that we can operate the business that way. Being such a high margin business, 67% gross margins, you can start to see that if we start doing 7, 8, 900,000, not saying we will, but it's within reach, that we could be doing that incremental increase. We could see that dropping directly into EBITDA, which I think makes this a pretty exciting prospect. It doesn't take another big round of CapEx to make this work. It doesn't take a new product or speculation on. It's continuing to expand what we're doing, and it drops to pretty close to the bottom line.
Absolutely. And having that asset light model, right, too, is a big driver behind that, I would assume.
For sure. We're not getting new plants or new equipment, paying a bunch of license fees and so forth. We have our base expenses, which are not high for most companies in our space, but nonetheless, you're running a micro cap public company. You have some expenses that you just can't get rid of. But once we get beyond those baseline expenses, we don't have to do a lot of capital spending, and we don't need to do a lot of increasing our expenses.
Definitely. Yeah, but hitting EBITDA positive, that's pretty much, a goal that every company strives for, and it's usually a great, milestone for the company. And congratulations once again. I did want to just touch on the net loss. You did have an improvement there as well. It was $54,788 versus the loss of $97,215 for the prior quarter. Cash at the end of the period was $98,527. But there was a working capital deficit of $246,090 as of May 31st. So I continue to see, analysts highlighting the company's ability to continue as a going concern. Does, in your opinion, your thoughts on this, like from what I can see, everything that I'm seeing is starting to kind of instill confidence that you're on the right track. Is that kind of how you see it as well?
It is. I'm not thrilled about where our cash balance is. And I referenced this, I believe, on your show, or at least maybe one other. We may have to tap into a little bit of credit to get us through a period here or there, but these aren't huge numbers. These are numbers that can be financed by myself or me and a couple of directors. But frankly, I don't even see needing to tap that. We're running it a little bit close, but this is what companies do. You apply as much cash as you can to grow the business, and we've done that by expanding to 6 states. It's why we didn't expand to 12 states. We do have a little bit of upfront cost to buy bottles and packaging and do those sorts of things, but I think we've been prudent in at our speed of progression, our speed of expansion, where we're able to see growing revenues. We're adding a new state every month or two. We're not adding 6 states at once. We're adding a state every month or two, and towards the end of this year, we see increasing revenues. Again, our expenses aren't really going up. We do have a note due at the end of December that I believe we're going to be able to cover. And if we don't cover, I think we have a good plan in place with our note holder to potentially restructure that note. We'll stay tuned for that. But
push out the maturity date.
The company is, on this call or any public facing statement, you'll want to stay away from absolutes. But the company is not in danger of running out of money. The company is growing its revenues. And in the event that we get a little bit tight on cash flow from one month to another, this isn't a huge number. And I see us sort of expanding our earnings in the months to come. So I'm not concerned about our cash balance right now, but I can certainly see how anyone drilling down on our balance sheet might take a close look at that.
Gotcha. Yeah, whenever analysts take a look at it, they don't really hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. They're just looking at the numbers, and exactly what you said, right? It's at first glance, it might raise some red flags, but based on everything that you said, it seems, and the growth trajectory that you're on, maybe we'll segue into some product categories as well, because I've been hearing that the shots the I think those are there's 3 flavors of those. Just bring it up here real quickly. Those are selling like crazy. I hear like hotcakes in, was it Oregon?
We've seen great growth on the shots in Oregon. I mean, shots, we're about equal, but just overtook our most mature market is Washington. Shots have now overtaken our standard bottle size of 6.7 ounces as our most popular SKU. That's why we added 2. There's only 3 in this picture, but we actually have 5 flavors on sale in Washington. Oregon, we relaunched with the 6-ounce product, just introduced the 2-ounce product, about 3 weeks ago. And those will overtake the 6-ounce products. They're what we're realizing with our target market is that they really want to be able to quickly and efficiently consume 100 milligrams of THC, and the shot format lends itself to that better. We're increasing our shot production. We're going to hold or maintain our 6-ounce production in Oregon, but that's going to be a great growth driver for us there. And I'll also add, I mean, new states like Missouri, we only launched with shots, and I referenced that before as one of the winning parts of our quarter. Shots seem like the place for us to start and introduce the 6-ounce as a follow-on, because it does offer a slightly different product where it's a little more easily shared, a little more mixable. People don't always want that potency. They want to be able to dose it out and use it over a week or 2. But no, the shots are awesome. They just continue to perform, and that is also, I'll mention, where most of our innovation is being done in terms of coming up with new flavors and formats.
Okay, cool. Thanks for that. So yeah, so I'm just had a quick question here on the fly. Like, are they meant for like just immediate, ready to drink, or is it more intended to be like mixed with another beverage like water or something like that?
Personally, I would always mix it with another beverage. I'd share with a friend, because 100 milligrams is
exactly.
That's not in my universe. But no, I think about half of our users do prefer to consume the shots in one go. Anecdotally, we hear from some of them, they're like, no, it's portable, it's easy for me to carry. I can consume it over a couple of days, etc. But portability is part of it, and efficient consumption of 100 milligrams is the other driver.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I was going to say 100 milligrams, definitely not for for your beginner getting into the space. But like you say, if you can mix it with another beverage, that's probably the way to go, right? And then you guys also
it's not addictive, but your body does build up some resistance to it, and that's where a lot of our base is buying major.
And you had the major brand extended to the gummies, the gummy category as well, and was that just in Washington so far?
That's in Washington only. We do actually have one other state that is pretty close to launching gummies. We'll hold off for that, but again, I've referenced that before, that we see gummies as an opportunity. Early showing with gummies is okay. It's hard for me to make any judgment on any one of our products. Like I'll compare it to, say, another product launch we did with Happy Apple, which was a few months ago. We launched a new 10 milligram drink, and you just can't really tell in the first month. I mean, I had mixed results on Happy Apple 10 and 10 milligrams, and 3 months later, I couldn't be more happy with how the product's performing. When I see the early results for gummies, it's sure, okay, we're getting started. And that's probably the reaction of most buyers. They're like, great, there's another gummy. We love Major. We'll try it. We'll see how they go. But we're not going to buy 6 cases of gummies of a new gummy right off the bat. We're going to buy 1 case and see how they sell. So, we're starting off in that market. I think it's going okay. We have to wait and see a little bit longer before I could really confidently give a judgment on how we're doing.
Gotcha. All right, appreciate that. Well, we'll definitely get an update from you in the future about that. I was definitely curious because that's definitely a huge market. I think it's 3 or 4 times the size of the beverage market at the moment.
Gummies, gummies are just, I think it's just a more traditional way to consume cannabis. but still has a barrier beyond, say, flour, where you have to be able to produce a great flavor profile.
Yeah.
We nailed the flavor profiles are awesome. I think the question on gummies is how unique you need to be on minors. We've launched a straight THC gummy that focuses on price.
Hmm.
I think the risk there, or the strategic thought there is, our gummy uses a more sophisticated market where you really need to be doing, say, a specific function, an implied function, such as sleep, that does THC and CBN,
Right.
or THC and CBG. So again, we'll wait and see. We'll see if we have to innovate further. But I think gummies are going to be a great market for us. And not to take anything away from Washington, I think the next state we go into is going to be pretty exciting for us with gummies.
Absolutely. And just out of curiosity, what do they retail for, the gummies?
So we try and stay under that $20 price point. I won't talk about what the wholesale cost is, because we might have the occasional competitor watching your podcast. But the retail cost that we suggest for our product is $20, which is very competitive.
Yeah, and it's 100 milligrams, right? And it's 10 milligrams. There's 10 gummies, 100 milligrams per pack, right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Gotcha. Awesome. Well, I appreciate the color on that.
You'll see a couple of gummies on there for $18, $19, but combined with our brand familiarity, we think $20 represents a pretty good value.
Yeah, I'm used to the cap here in Canada, so we have a cap of 10 milligrams per pack. So if we were to get 10 gummies in a pack, it'd only be 1 milligram per. So hopefully they're going to increase that at some point soon. It's kind of it is what it is.
Health Canada needs to realize that people should be consuming less sugar, therefore adding more milligrams in less gummies. But that's just my humble opinion.
Oh, I wholeheartedly agree. And when it first started, you get a whole chocolate bar, and I'm not a new user. I've been consuming for over a decade, and I've when I first started, you get a pack of gummies and a chocolate bar, and your stomach, you just be sick to your stomach by the time you were done of it, and kind of starting to feel a little bit of the effects. But yeah, it was at the beginning, and it was super expensive, but having that 100 milligram option, and then you buy $18 to $20, and then you can space it out over a course of a few weeks or something like that, right? It's kind of the idea. So awesome. Well, I know you guys had some additions and some changes to your board of directors. So Mike Ernest was one of the new directors, and it was Patrick Gray, right, that was stepping down. Can you tell us a little bit more about what Mike brings to the table?
For sure. Yeah, and just briefly on Patrick. Patrick was CEO of Pascal Biosciences, which was the shell he took over prior to becoming Nevis. It was just great to have Patrick continue on just as an administrative transition to be able to go from one company to the next, and really appreciate everything Pat has done for us over the last year. None of our directors take a salary, and Pat really just did a great job for us. So Pat has stepped down, and Mike Ernest. Mike's based out of New York City. He's been involved in a lot of different challenger brands. And challenger brands, for some of the listeners who maybe don't know, that's a brand who goes into an established space, comes up with a new value proposition, and does the hard yards to be accepted as a mass consumer product. So Mike is a principal at Surratt Group. Surratt has made investments in dozens, if not hundreds, of companies in food, consumer beauty, some other unique spaces. And what I love about having Mike on our board, aside from being a graduate of Kellogg, being a very incredibly smart guy, but he has been through this process of, if you're Procter & Gamble, you have nearly unlimited budget if you want to launch a product and get into market. And they have a playbook, but that's much different from a playbook of a company that does have limited budget, that does want to remain cash flow positive, that does have to watch its dimes and nickels. And what do you need to do to really separate yourself from the pack to become the ultimate leader in the space? And Mike's done that with a number of companies and brands. some which have been acquired for some large sums. And when you have someone who has lived through that in real time, to get him on our board and to be able to borrow his brain is just fantastic. Also has a great financial mind, part of our audit committee, and I think he'll offer just some great fiscal oversight for shareholders.
Absolutely. Sounds like he has a wealth of knowledge and experience. That's great to see. And then one thing I noticed here in Canada, are you guys seeing like your products available at any festivals or anything like that yet? I'm not sure what the laws and regulations are, but here I'll give you a little bit of background. I dropped my girlfriend off at the Outdoors Comedy Festival here in Edmonton, Alberta. It was a milestone for Canada. It made history, actually. It was the first time you're able to purchase MJ products at a festival. Keep in mind, it was outdoors, so they had like pre-rolls and which I was surprised about, to be honest. But you could buy beverages and edibles and things like that. So that was the first time in history that we were able to buy something at a festival or some sort of event, right? So it was pretty cool to see. But is that something that you guys take part in as right now, or is that something in the future that's going to be coming down the pipeline? Just curious on your thoughts on that.
Anecdotally, we've been involved in a few things like that. There's HempFest here in Washington State. There's a couple in California. Don't ask me the names because I can't remember them. But we've been consumed festivals at a couple of events in California. It's also, as mentioned, we have a new retailer in Nevada called NEWU, NUWU, that has a consumption lounge, or will have a consumption lounge. I have to double check that. But this open consumption lounge concept in Nevada is just starting to sort of take hold. So more and more, that's where we see beverages really being normalized, even within the cannabis community, of like, oh, this is just, wow, these are really effective. You feel the effects in 15 minutes. These are awesome.
Yeah.
I'm still sort of both confounded and amazed. It's fun when I give a friend who's a cannabis user our product and have them first go like, flower only, thanks. That stuff doesn't work for me. And I'm like, just try it one night or one day. And they'll, get the text back that just says, man, that blew my mind. That was amazing. And so you just see, like, it just reminds me how few people, relatively speaking, still understand what kind of product this is. So yeah, things like festivals and outdoor consumption will be awesome. We don't play in the D9 space just yet. But in Minnesota, there's tons of examples of people consuming Delta-9 hemp-derived cannabis, for people who aren't tracking. And it's very open in Minnesota. You can buy hemp-derived THC in liquor stores, and I believe it's some sports facilities. Like you're buying a beer, you can buy a D9 drink.
Yeah.
And that's wonderful for our industry, just for people who have an alternative to alcohol.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like, to your point with the rapid onset, right, it has to do with all these new breakthroughs in emulsion technology, right? And, some people might be used to consuming it from the illicit market where, there wasn't all, this big capital behind all of this technology, right? They weren't able to develop that. So they might have had a bad taste in their mouth, no pun intended. But, at the end of the day, I think like you hit the nail on the head, right? It's a great, especially for a name like Nevis Brands, right? Where you want to be the leader in beverages and edibles and those product formats. And those are really, those are really going to be massive in, a social setting with regards to, arenas and concerts and clubs and pubs. And, it's going to be, something that, very underrated, I think, in our industry, and something that, it's going to be just great for overall for a healthier alternative. And, I always say that when you go to, the Denver Broncos or something like that, you're not going to be able to light one up unless, maybe they have a smoking section. But, think of maybe even like an indoor arena, right? You go to see, some, I don't know, the Seattle Kraken, you're inside, right? You can't leave the building. You're not going to be able to just light up a pre-roll, right? So you're going to have your beverages, your edibles, right? So that's going to be the number one format in those types of settings, right?
That's where the portability of the shot, I think, plays into also things like hockey games and concerts, where people can truly stick it in a pocket or a purse and yeah,
I think you can take it in with you too. Like, I don't think there's any restrictions there as far as I'm aware, but
no comment.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe we better leave that to the gate. But yeah, no, I think we're on a great path, and I'm excited for the future, to be honest. I did want to touch on real quick. I know we're running out of time here, but I did want to touch real quickly on JD Vance, and obviously Ohio is a market you operate in. I'm not sure, it's been pushed back. I'm not sure when we're going to see those, when it's going to be officially live. But what are your hopes for Ohio, and what are your thoughts on JD Vance kind of taking that spotlight yesterday as being the running mate?
Oh gosh, I thought you were going to bring up some specific news on JD Vance and cannabis, which I didn't see. But in terms of Vance and Trump on cannabis specifically, I think they're going to be, I'm not going to say fantastic for the market in the sense that they're going to force down federal normalization and legalization and so forth. But the fantastic news with Trump and Vance is that they have been steadfast on saying, let the states drive cannabis laws themselves. And taking Vance and Trump out of it, just I think traditionally that side of American politics has tended to be very big on states' rights, let the states legislate and make their own rules, and so on and so forth. So I mean, if they're elected, I would predict sort of status quo. I mean status quo with the continued progress that we're seeing, with less prosecution, more understanding, more tolerance by the federal government. This is less a Trump Vance thing, but I'd like to think that we are going to just get this rescheduling done, that we're going to get banking done, and I believe we will. Frankly, no matter who's elected, I just think there's too much momentum for that not to happen. But overall, I mean, we can come back to Vance and Trump, but I mean, I think you saw there was a tweet the other day on DeSantis in Florida. I mean, there was an anti-hemp bill in Florida, and DeSantis vetoed it, and there was $5 million donated to the DeSantis campaign. That's just how the sausage is made in American politics. And the fact that hemp and cannabis, same thing, have leverage, and it's an issue that matters, is a good thing. And I just think we're getting to the point where it's less about legal, illegal, and more just about this is here, it's here to stay, it's acceptance, it's regulation, and not prosecution. And these are all positives for our industry. So, finally, I'll just also mention, politicians change so quickly. You had Kamala Harris, who had a history of prosecuting marijuana users prior to being elected. Thankfully, Harris and Biden appear to be pro-cannabis now. So if they are elected, I think it's going to be continued progress. If Vance or Trump are elected, I think it's going to be pretty much the same. And maybe just the final projection on that. I think Congress is going to be the driver of our, as it should be. They should be the legislators who drive policy in our country. They're going to be the ones who drive progress. It's not going to be an executive order. Yeah.
And I didn't want to steer you in any direction there, because I truly wanted your honest opinion, because it seems like we're pretty much on the same page. And, with the Chevron ruling, it's trying to take away that power of these three-letter agencies, right? And these unelected bureaucrats that, they're just frankly, blinded by power. And I mean, the whole reason why Congress was put there was to legislate, right? To create these rules and bills and get things done. And there's been so much, division even from that standpoint, that I think we need to get back to, I've been saying it for a while now, letting states decide. And to your point, yeah, Trump and Vance seem very pro, letting the states run the show. And with 38 states now, legal in a medical standpoint, we've got, we have 24, potentially 25 with Florida. I'm pretty sure Florida is going to pass, and maybe that's another state that you're looking at. But I think that's going to be an absolute game changer for the industry. And then, yeah, to your point, I think that at this point the genie's out of the bottle. I don't think you're going to be able to put rescheduling on the back burner now that it's made it this far. It'd be different if the HHS, FDA, you got the DOJ and the DEA all basically in the same, court. And yeah, I just think that at this point, I get that question a lot is, are they going to basically erase all the progress that we just made? And I found conflicting things. Like Vance said that, I know that he voted against safe banking. I did look and I found that, he said something about like odors and, having it in public would be a bad thing. But, at the end of the day, I side with, there was like, if you go and look at his policies, it did say that he was in favor of taxation, legalization, and regulation. So yeah, to your point, I think, from a state level, I think he's very pro MJ, and, it doesn't sound like he'd stand in the way of anything. And at the end of the day, you have to kind of give the people what they want. And I think, the people have already spoken, right?
That's what I was just going to say. I don't think any politician wants to die on this hill. There's other things that have more upside. I think they just can't fight the demographics. There's too many people younger than me that are the next generation of voters who are who they need to be elected by. So I just don't see that.
And Vance is 39, right? So I mean, he's got that progressive mindset where, and like you say, people's mind change, and look how quickly Trump did a 180 on crypto from the last time he was in office. Now that's his whole campaign focus pretty much. So anything can happen, but I'm pretty sure, I try not to go after absolutes like you said either, but I think, I'm pretty hopeful that by September, October, we should get rescheduling. And then even if they were elected, they're not in the office until January 20th, I think it is. So I think there's quite a bit of time for us to get that done, and maybe even in a lame duck session, get banking done. And at that point, it's all in the rear view mirror anyway.
That's right.
So,
that's right.
But yeah, were you surprised by some of the opposition that we got with regards to rescheduling? Some of the GOP House committees, and
this is probably a terrible example, but I mean, I sort of compare it to, I was traveling in the deep South about 5 or 6 years ago, and where I live in Seattle, you don't really run into racism. I mean, everybody here is pretty accepting, and I'm not going to say it's not an issue, but you just don't see it. But middle Louisiana, going through certain parts, I was like, wow, that guy just said that and acted like that, and it sort of it throws you. I mean, when we saw some of the opposition, or saw some of the letters being published, I believe it's the Michigan politician out of Michigan that was just taking a hard line, like, this is going to kill people and kill our youth. It's like, where have you been?
Yeah. Where are you getting your data from? Yeah.
and to be clear, I don't think cannabis is good for under 21-year-old minds. It's just not.
Oh yeah.
There's science there. Just to be clear on that. But alcohol also isn't good for under 21-year-old minds or brains. When you see a politician demonizing this product, our product, not our specific product, but cannabis in general, right, you just sort of shake your head and go, where have you been, and who's advising you, and who are you listening to? It's not just that you're wrong; it's a credibility loss. So, sorry, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but yeah, I was surprised to see it. But again, I just think, gosh, you and I are going deep on the politics train here. I think anytime anytime there's an issue, if there's an opportunity to be an opponent and either, collect donations, collect power, get something else done, people do it. And, for all we know, the opposition had nothing to do with cannabis. It was some other game that's being played that we don't know about. So not to go too conspiracy on that, but just politics is a weird beast. And I think there are always going to be voices that you hear that you never expect to hear.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. I try to stay away from politics, but it is what it is, right? We're all affected by it, and especially our industry, right? As we've dealt with decades of propaganda and stigma, right? And it takes a lot to break that. So at the end of the day, I feel like we're on the right path, and I can't imagine anybody derailing it at this point. And like you say, at the end of the day, this is what the people want. So give the people what they want. You work for the people. I think, if we continue to make our voices heard, right, we still have a couple days left 4 days left of the comment period as well. So I encourage anybody who, while we're on this topic, to go on there and comment, leave your story. If you have a positive, negative, by all means, not trying to discourage any negative experiences, but be honest and, let's get this over the finish line and, bring this to the American people. This is what they want. And, the overwhelming majority support it. So at the end of the day, it's just a matter of when, not if. So anything you want to leave the audience with before we wrap up, John?
Just say, by the way, love that conversation, Rod. Thanks for that. Don't always get the opportunity to sort of opine on the whole dynamic. So, but I do just want to tell our shareholders and our listeners, I mean, the thing with Nevis is, when we're in all 38 states and when we feel like we have mature markets, then it's truly time where us as a company will really concern ourselves with some of the deeper, bigger policies happening. But within the current policy and legal and operating environment right now, for us, in some ways, we're set up to capitalize more now with the current sort of disjointed legal environment, having these different beachheads and licensees and having navigated all the different red tape in our 11 different states, 10 or 11 different states where we're operating. So for us right now, this is actually an opportune time. Chaos is friendly to challengers and entrepreneurs, and we're still very much a startup entrepreneurial-minded company. So we like this operating environment. We may not like it in a year or two as we grow as a company, but for us, it just represents more opportunity because we're able to navigate it.
Absolutely. Well, that was a fantastic conversation. As you mentioned, that concludes today's interview. So thanks again for coming back on. It was a pleasure chatting with you, John, and we'll hope to do it again soon.
Thanks so much, Rod. Appreciate it.